So Elisha and I have recorded quite a few podcasts on romance and sex and intimacy with young kids and all of those things, but it has been a while since we've done one. And in the season or in the mood, I guess, of Valentine's Day and love, we decided to jump on here and do another one. And I think the thing with marriages that are really good isn't necessarily that they have a ton of secrets. It's just that they get good at doing these basic, foundational, simple things. They get good at them and they do them very, very well. And so it's something that maybe we've mentioned some of these things before. Maybe these aren't going to be new to you. You've heard them from somebody else. But I think it's so good that we go back and we revisit the basics and just remember that, yeah, maybe romance is the icing on the cake, but it also is one of the biggest reasons we chose to get married. It was one of our biggest motivators to get married. And I do think romance is one of the most important things that keeps us in love. And I put that in air quotes, but it's fun to be in love. So why not? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I know that we're going to have a fun time recording it.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
Well, here we are talking romance, love once again. And as you said already, Katie, in the intro, it's kind of in the name or in the mood, as you said, of Valentine's Day. And this is one of those episodes where Katie and I thought it best to each come up with 3 points, because I think something like romance, you can just talk and talk and talk about, and sometimes Katie and I will both be so excited to talk about a subject, we'll talk over each other, or we'll take their point. We'll be like, no, I wanted to say that point. And then the episode will go way too long, or maybe in fear of it going too long, one of us will refrain from sharing our point. And so Katie's got 3 points. I don't know what they are. And I've got 3 points. And I don't think you know what they are, although we've probably heard each other talk about them before.
Yeah, so if you guys aren't familiar with us, maybe you're a new listener, then Elisha and I have been married. Well, this podcast episode actually is coming out on the day we got engaged. February 16th.
Nice.
And we will have been married 6 years
or 15th. Yeah, the 15th.
May. I think we got engaged on the 16th.
Oh, so 2 days after Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Elisha can't ever remember that. But you do remember our anniversary. So
yes,
that's what's important.
I always get that one. Right. The reason I never forget the day that we were engaged on is because I always thought growing up that Valentine's Day was on February 15th.
Yeah, you mean the reason why you do forget.
Yeah, the reason that I do forget what day, so I always thought we got engaged the day after Valentine's Day, but it was 2 days after Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day always sneaks up on us.
It does.
So we have had quite a few of our babies the first week in February or shortly after. And so we have been like postpartum through a lot of Valentine's days, and Valentine's has kind of been an afterthought. So it's not like a huge holiday for us. But I'm excited to talk about this. We did want to mention Top 5 Tuesday though before we dove in.
Really? Because when I was talking about the points, did that just get you thinking about that? The 3 points?
Well, it got me thinking about it because it's legitimately one of the highlights of my week.
Wow.
Elisha sends me the Top 5 Tuesday email, which is basically like our family newsletter of things that we don't share on Instagram or here on the podcast. It's exclusive. You either get it or you don't. And every time he sends it to me to read through, I just die laughing.
Wow.
It's so good. He's such a comedic writer. And so, yeah, it's things that we're reading. It's things that we're learning. It's funny things the kids say. But it's also just really entertaining. So
nice. Thanks for the plug. It's it's one of my personal plugs there.
Yeah.
You're one of my personal pluggers. I like it.
I'm
Thanks
a
for
personal
doing that.
plugger.
I love it. I love when new people subscribe to the email list because I do enjoy writing the weekly newsletter, and it only gets seen by people that are on the email list. Like there's no other places for people to find this where you're like, if you come out with a blog and maybe not as many people read it as you were hoping for in the first week, you're like, oh, well, it'll be there forever, and so maybe it'll pop again and people will be able to read it down the road. Whereas with this, it's just on the email. So like if you aren't subscribed on that Tuesday, then you're not going to ever see that email ever again.
So yeah, you can go to nowthatwe'reafamily.com and you can see where to sign up there, or we'll have it linked in the show notes.
Nice. I love it.
So wanted to talk about that before we got started. There's also one more thing I wanted to talk about.
Let's hear it. This is one more like preface thing, little pre.
Yeah, a little preface thing is that all marriages go through times that aren't romantic. and you don't live at a 10. So a 10, the 10 I'm referring to is like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're at total odds with your spouse. It seems like there's this huge divide between you, and 10 being like we're in Cabo by ourselves and it's just romantic and fun. And Cabo was probably the wrong place to mention.
I was going to say, I thought Cabo was the biggest fight of our career.
You know,
so.
we had some of our highest highs and lowest lows in Cabo. So anyways, but you know, just a very romantic destination, and you're having the time of your life and you forget that you're parents and you just feel like kids again. So that's a 10. And none of us live there all the time. So even though I do feel like Elisha and I have a very romantic, fun marriage, we've talked about here on the podcast seasons where maybe physical intimacy hasn't come easily for us, or we have had to work to strive towards that 10. I do think it's always worth striving for. So episode 88 on the podcast is where we kind of talk through a season where I had a really low sex drive in our marriage and how that affected our marriage, and we talked about it very real time. So anyways, if you find yourself in that season and you aren't in a season where marriage is real sparky and fun, don't feel like we haven't had those seasons too.
Yeah, that's certainly just almost like a prerequisite, I feel like, for healthy marriages, is that they go through a season of not feeling that 10 out of 10. You know, movies are made and books are written oftentimes about the 10 out of 10, and it not just in romance, in any aspect of life. Like when you reach the goal, that's what we all love hearing about, and when the mission's accomplished, we love seeing that. But it's usually years and hundreds and thousands of hours that go into that, and in that time there's so many highs and lows. But I think that even in those highs and lows, Katie, you've done such an incredible job of keeping our marriage fun and romantic and playful, even if we weren't, like you said, really feeling it at the time. Which actually kind of leads to my first point. So maybe
we're diving in.
I'll steal the first point here. And my second 2 points are a little bit more like pretty practical, maybe painfully practical, but this one's more conceptual. It's a little bit more big picture. And that is, we've all probably heard the phrase mood follows action, but I love thinking about that in regards to romance, because for most of us, we experience romance early on in our relationship, maybe when we first meet and then we date and then we're engaged, and we think that this romance is something that just kind of happens to us, where you meet the person, you've got these feelings that wash you away into this, this life of adventure where you're pursuing the person and you're thinking of fun, creative things to do for them or to say to them so that they will know how much, affection you feel towards them. And so oftentimes you get into marriage and that rush fades because you're with the person all the time. The chase is over. You signed on the dotted line. You're in that marital covenant with one another. You've got the agape love. You've got that love that you don't have to like work for anymore.
I mean,
coming
as soon
from the
as
other
the
person.
Greek comes into play, I fall asleep. So,
or I was trying to what's the it's
I
like
think
the what's it
unconditional.
Unconditional. Thank you. You've got the unconditional love, and that obviously is a beautiful aspect of marriage. That there's unconditional love in marriage, where like I love Katie, and I'm going to be loyal to her and faithful to her, regardless of what I feel like I'm getting from her or how much I'm enjoying it, because that's the beauty of the covenant of marriage. However, I love romance, and I think everybody, if they're honest with themselves, desires to have a romantic marriage. Again, that's why, like you said at the beginning, Katie, that was a big reason why you entered into marriage in the first place, because there was this romantic key and aspect to the relationship. But we don't have to wait for it to come sweep us away like we did maybe when we were dating and when we were engaged, where it was just kind of this wave. We can actually create romance through action. So I love that phrase, mood follows action, because we often think of romance as being kind of a mood that we find ourselves in. It's like, well, if you want that mood, then identify actions that put you in that mood, that put your spouse in that mood, that make you feel those feelings that you felt when the moods were just coming to you. Do the moods still just come to you sometimes, and you get rushes of romance when you're holding hands and the sun setting, or whatever it is, your spouse does something amazing. You just think when you look at them, you think, oh my goodness, what an amazing person. Yeah, I love those moments too. But why not create more of those moments through taking action?
Yeah, I think of that circle. It's a pretty popular concept, and again, this is a stereotype, so it's not always true. But often, men feel after they have sex, they feel emotional closeness, and often women want to feel that emotional closeness before they have sex, and so that's why there's often a standoff with the intimacy side of romance. Because if one partner's not feeling it, it's really hard to initiate or respond because you aren't feeling the thing that makes you feel like you want to do the action or whatever. So I was thinking of that as you were talking. I think either spouse can break that negative cycle or circle, because the husband can choose to emotionally love his wife and fill her needs even when he's not feeling close, or maybe they haven't had that physical intimacy. And the wife can choose to give her husband physical intimacy before she feels that emotional closeness from him. And I think that is something that is really cool about the gift of sex, is that it can be sacrificial, but it can also start a positive mood or a positive closeness in the relationship.
Love it. I love how you just jumped to assuming I was talking about sex when I was talking about mood following action.
Well, Elisha,
I feel like there's other things that are romantic in our marriage, wouldn't you say?
Well, I would say that, but I also would say that I really do like sex in our marriage. And I think that says a lot about who you are as a husband to me. The fact that, from what I hear, most women don't just love this as often as much as I do, I think. And that might have something to do with a lot of things. But I think that just your love towards me and the way that you make me feel so emotionally close to you is what makes that a really fun aspect in our marriage most of the time. And so maybe you weren't thinking about sex, but I was thinking about sex. So we went there.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think that I've ever thought in regards to like trying to, I mean, maybe I have, but I don't think I've ever thought in regards to like, if I do X, Y, and Z, then I get this back from Katie. I think I really do seek out more of the mood, not just like the action that I may want or may desire. I do want there to be a mood of romance and a mood of oneness and of closeness. And I think that that's what I'm talking about more than like a romantic action or a romantic deed. Because that's obviously important, and I think that we love those in marriage. But I also like just there being a mood of romance in our home. And we've had that even at times, in postpartum seasons or various seasons where sex was off the table. I still wanted a romantic mood in our home. And I think you did too. And so I think it's fun to identify those things that just create that romantic mood in the home.
Yeah, for sure. For the record, I wasn't assuming that you were talking about that. It just, your whole mood action thought made me think of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think the physical intimacy is only so enjoyable as the whole romantic, the mood and the emotion and everything. And that's something that is actually something that I think is, that I've heard from different women, is that they feel like their husbands kind of try to butter them up before they want to have sex with them. So it's like, oh, you look so beautiful today. Or they come up and they give them a hug or a kiss or want to snuggle them. And that can be kind of repulsive because they're like, I know you just want something from me. And I've never felt that way in our marriage. And I think that's because Elisha does that every single day. You come up and you tease me, you hug me, we send flirtatious texts, we hold hands all the time. We're constantly touching. Whenever we're together, we're touching. Now, I like to think we aren't like, uncomfortably physical.
Show it, like you mean with
like when we're in public
display
settings, it's not like, people are like, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But we're constantly holding hands and hugging each other and teasing each other. And you're constantly telling me, oh, you look so good in that, or just affirming me physically. And I hope that I do the same thing for you. Oh, yeah. And so I feel like I do feel always primed. And I think you feel that way too. And it's not something that just happens when we want a certain act to happen. It just happens all the time. And as a result, we're always ready. And I would say this is, during the 80%, the healthy seasons in our marriage.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely bone dry seasons where there's just not that emotional bandwidth there. And you're trying to put money in your spouse's bank account because there's just no emotional equity. But I would say, as a general rule, two things that have really helped us, I think, have that emotional equity. You're constantly touching and then constantly affirming.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So that's my point. What's your point?
Well, that was something that I wanted to just bring up, I guess, is that whole concept of not doing something because you want something, just doing something because you genuinely like the person. And having that, people might call it foreplay or whatever, but it really is just this flirtatious, when you're dating, you're always ready for more time with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You want to be close to them. You can't touch them enough, and I think that that's how I feel most of the time in our marriage is I just can't be with Elisha enough. And it makes it really fun.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of times people talk about how children will be this infringement upon physical intimacy. And it's funny how I think you and I have used it as almost like a way to make that feel more like it's the scarcity makes it all that more of like a challenge and fun to go get physical intimacy.
Like,
and
it's
even
part of the way we still have a rush in our marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can use it that way. And then also just how it's fun when you're all piled on the couch watching a movie to like sneak your hand, through the couch and find your hand. It's like you're going through kids and then like find your hand. And it seems like all the more special, where there's kids piled all over the place, but I still get to like hold your hand in the pile, or I get to reach through and touch the back of your head, and just kind of like rub your hair. To me, it makes it a little bit more, almost more special. And not just because of the scarcity, but also because of like that potential barrier between you and the other person.
Yeah, anytime you can't have something, that makes it more exciting, right? And so I think that kids really can create that excitement or that build-up effect because it's like, oh, I really like you right now, but like we can't do this. Like we have all our kids around and like, rain check.
Yeah.
And I think that it brings this really fun excitement to a relationship.
Yeah.
Also, something that constantly gets brought up in female circles again is, I'm so touched out by my toddlers, or I'm so touched out by all my kids. My husband touches me and I'm just like, oh, like get off. And I know that there can be some things hormonally that can contribute to that. But I would really challenge that thought because a romantic touch from your husband is nothing like your toddler's grabbing at you, hopefully. And allowing yourself to go to that place of like, oh, this is romantic. This is sweet. This is a fairy tale touch. This is not someone needy, grabbing, grubby, clawing. And I just think, to me, they've never aligned in my brain. And regardless of how many kids I have on top of me all day, when Elisha comes up and gives me a hug, it's like, I melt. I don't melt when my 2-year-old is like has a stinky diaper and spits up on me. So I think culture has said, yeah, they're the same thing. Like lump them in the same category. You just don't want to be touched. And I would challenge us to separate those out because they're definitely not the same kind of touch.
I would hope not. Dang. Otherwise, I got a lot of competition in this household.
Yeah, everyone's going in for the kill. So something that I also think is really fun, and we've talked about this before, but I think it's something that, again, especially in circles with couples with young kids, it's like spontaneity is not possible. And it's talked about like it's not an option, and you can still have very spontaneous, fun times as a couple. And I think that we have that a lot in our marriage, and that makes it really fun and exciting.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up spontaneity because I agree. Every time we're able to be spontaneous in anything, whether it's a spontaneous date, it's a spontaneous, like when the kids are taking a nap and we've got, 15 minutes to do whatever, to have fun with each other. That's great. Or even if the kids are sleeping, we just want to like go out to the backyard and talk. we go out there and it's spontaneous. It wasn't scheduled. It wasn't planned. It is really fun. However, since you brought this up, and I don't want to totally derail your point here. But,
oh, I'm not committed to the points like you are. You're the point man.
Okay.
Today.
Well,
okay,
but to my defense, there's been some tension in previous episodes where we didn't stick to the point process.
I think it's like I've had 7 points, so that's been the tension.
But I 100% agree with you. Spontaneity can bring so much life and romance into the marriage. But I also think on the other side of that, I think that my personality is prone to thinking, oh, if it's scheduled, it's not sexy, or if it's scheduled, it's not fun. And I challenge that thought. I challenge that concept in my own thinking, and I don't want to challenge it in other people's. I think it can totally be fun. I think structure and scheduling. Go ahead.
But have we ever done that in our marriage?
No, when I say structure and scheduling, I'm talking about things. Say take Valentine's Day. Oh, it's just a day out of the month that everybody pressures you to. I want to be different. It's like, okay, that's fine, but why not use this day to remember to be really romantic? Do you like receiving romance from me, like at any day? Not just because even if all the advertising's like gunning for me, and I see everybody at the store getting flowers for their wife, is that like a good reason for me to not get you flowers, or is it a good reason to get you flowers? It's a good reason to get you flowers.
Oh,
don't you think?
Yeah,
or like
definitely.
For your birthday, or having a scheduled date night where it's just kind of like,
Yes.
oh, he doesn't really think that. I think my fear was like, she won't think I'm thinking about her all week if I just get like basically a babysitter on retainer for every Friday night from 4:30 to 7:30. And it's like, oh, I forgot about date night, but we're doing it anyways. It's like, no, you just love being able to do a date night, and you like that I think about doing a date night with you. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yes, and so when I say schedule or structure or maybe systems, like I love it, even if like I feel like part of your prayer routine, I think you have things like, oh, write Elisha a note,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you wrote that note or put it in your planner a week before, or you planned it, earlier. I love receiving the note from you. It means so much to me. And so I'm not contradicting the spontaneity. I think the spontaneity is fun, but I also think sometimes that scheduling things and being structured, I've downplayed that, and I've like put my nose up to it. Been like, oh, anniversaries or Valentine's Day, or it's overhyped or it's overdone. And maybe all those things are true, but it also can still be extremely effective, and rewarding. So that was one of my points.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that there's so many different ways to make romance work for your relationship. And I would say the only bad option is not having it.
Yeah.
Not having that fun, not having that that rush of emotions. It doesn't go away when you get married. It doesn't have to go away when you get married, I should say. People talk about infatuation wearing off or the honeymoon stage wearing off. And yeah, you reach this level of comfortability with your spouse, but we're still, 6 years in, definitely we create seasons of total excitement, total infatuation, and you get that thrill in your marriage. And I think you want that thrill in your marriage because that's what keeps it fun. That's what keeps it exciting. And just letting things be the same old all the time can get really dull and monotonous, and other things can look more exciting. And you're like, why am I stuck in this marriage to this one person? And we've done all that there is to do, and now we just rinse and repeat for 60 years.
Wow.
That's just not real. I don't know. Maybe that really motivates some people, but it doesn't motivate me.
I think that's just kind of a principle that I always want to have in life in general. And that's anytime you think you've seen it all or done it all or heard it all or learned it all, that is such a silly thought to have in any category of life. Like, I don't care if it's in your faith or if it's in your professional development or if it's in any area of your life. Once you start thinking things like, oh, we've done everything in marriage, it doesn't work. It's like, no, there's no way any person in this life has uncovered all of the hacks and tricks and benefits or the advice or the counsel that there is to be had in really any category of life. And so every time I've even felt that thought coming in to my head regarding marriage, I've been like, wait a second, it's time to go back to it's time to go back to school on marriage. Let's get the marriage books. Let's get some fun ideas going here, because that's just such a defeating place to be, and it's so unhelpful, and it's just not true.
Yeah, something that I think can be fun are those little like couples question cards, and asking questions to your spouse that are like different than even the normal conversations, because
Yes.
the conversations can get stale. And so bringing up new things, learning new things about each other, or pursuing new things individually and then talking about those
Yes.
can be really fun and bring new life into the marriage. I think of some things. So I got this Q&A on Instagram this last week, and the question was, how many times should a married couple have sex? And I felt like that was such a trick question. I was like
in a lifetime?
yeah, no, like weekly. And but it got me thinking, because I was like, what would I say? I think that there's different levels of drives within every couple. I don't think there's like the right number, the magic number. But I do think that something that Elisha and I have created in our marriage is that the amount of times is the amount of times that the person with the higher drive wants it in that season, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there have been times when Elisha's had the higher drive. There's been times when I've had the higher drive. And one thing that we do that's really practical is we both shower before we go to bed. And I feel like that's kind of our way of saying, like, I'm available.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that if anything, it's like when we don't shower, we know that the other person's like really tired.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
look at each other like, hey, just, I really don't want to shower tonight. They're like, I don't want to shower either. It's like, great.
We got to go to sleep. Yeah. And so it really serves as like that, yeah, like you said, that unspoken kind of like rule that we have, or the way to communicate. And you've also at times been like you'll be the one that says first. It's kind of like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to shower before bed, and I'll be like, got it, and vice versa. I'll be like, hey, I'm just I'm going to go hop in the shower, and it's kind of like the way to give each other the heads up. Yeah,
I will say there's definitely nights like we shower. I'd say like 99% of the time. We also probably hang out 99% of the time in a physical way, but there are definitely nights we both shower and just go to bed. We just want to be clean too. I'm not saying like we're just like grubby.
The only purpose in showering is to have sex.
Is to be ready. But like that's just the general rule is we shower. And I think that that's nice, because it's leaving it open to the other person if it's a good time or if it's a bad like if they want it, then like great, let's do that. And
and that kind of segues. Wow, look at that. Another segue into another one of my points. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, good.
But very practically for me, something that I really want to remember is keeping things interesting, even when it comes to very like vain, superficial things like your presentation, like how my haircuts, or the senses, my deodorant or cologne, or you brought up being clean. On a like looking at this from a negative perspective, I think so many couples become such good friends, which is a total blessing of marriage. I love being friends with you, but they become friends to a point of always being casual with each other, and being able to, and just thinking we're like we've got this unconditional love. I can look however I want, smell however I want, eat however I want, be as messy, be as crude, be as insensitive as I want, because I know that they've got my back and we're friends here. Now, again, I love that there's a friendship element to our marriage, but going back to when you were trying to win the affection of your spouse, you didn't think that way. You didn't pass gas when you were sitting on the couch together. You didn't go like multiple days, without showering, or you didn't think to like not put on deodorant when you were going to be in the car with them. And I think that oftentimes when we start getting lazy or we start getting too comfortable, we neglect like the basic things that are things that we're attracted to, smells and the thing, and how we look and how we talk to one another. And so I think things like even, me getting a new cologne or finding out which deodorant fragrance you like the most, or figuring out which haircuts you like the most, or even certain outfits that you really like. And you do the same for me all the time. You do the same. And I really appreciate that. And at this, and on the flip side, like not falling into these negative patterns of just being flippant all of the time. Are there times where you can be flippant? And yes, of course. But then knowing that you also, the same things that like won your spouse over are most likely going to win them over, continue winning them over. You know,
Yeah.
like, sweet talking them and romancing them. Those things like don't really change.
Yeah. And yes, there's the blessing of unconditional love, but it's like, it's fun to love someone who wants you to love them, who's like still wanting to win you over. And so I think we both really try to win the other person over, even though I know that Elisha loves me. I know that I'm his one woman and that's a gift, but I want it to be fun and exciting for him.
Yes.
Not just like, well, you're stuck with me. So,
Yeah,
like,
it's
there's
fun.
that.
Like, I want you to want me and you want me to want you.
Yeah.
And early on, it's like that was there in dating and engagement. It's like, well, I want that to always be there. Like,
yeah, and I think when people say like, "Oh, dating is going to be is like the best time of your life," or being engaged is the best time of your life, it's like marriage is 10 times more that, because you have the commitment level there, you have the confidence in the unconditional love. So like that's all established, but then you could still have this heightened attraction that you had while you were dating and engaged. And that's something that I want to talk about, which is as far as just like confidence. It's in body image for women. This is really big. And I've obviously gone through a lot of different weight sizes. I've been very pregnant for a lot of times. And, I got pregnant 2 weeks after we got married. So my body started changing right away in our marriage. And not only did Elisha really make me feel affirmed through that whole process, but there are some things that help me when I don't really feel like it's fun to be intimate. And one of the biggest things is making myself so that I want to be noticed. I think if we go out to, the grocery store, you can look around and see what girls want to be noticed, right? They're doing certain things. Maybe their makeup's done a certain way, their hair's done a certain way. There's women who want to be seen as like put together, and then there's girls that are like really wanting attention. And I think that in a marriage, something that's helped me is if I'm like sweaty and it's been a rough day and my hair's frazzled and bags under my eyes, it's like, I don't want Elisha to notice me. When he notices me, it's almost like repulsive to me, even though it should be probably affirming. It's like, just don't look at me, okay? I'll see you tomorrow. But when I have gone out of the way to like do my hair, do my makeup, look cute, for me, I've mentioned this before, but like, especially at different weights for me, like putting on a self tanner is like an instant confidence booster for me. It's like, I want to be noticed. I want someone to know that I look good right now. And that makes me a lot more likely to initiate with Elisha, to play with him, to flirt with him, or to just like go up and kiss him. It's like, hey, look at me, tell me I look good. And I feel like that's been really good for our relationship. It's not surprising that we don't want to be noticed when we're just not feeling good about ourselves and don't want to be seen really or touched or appreciated.
Well, I don't know if I should say this because I think you know it, but I don't know how this comes across, but I think I know that about you, and I want to set you up as best as I can to feel confident, and I know certain things like getting new clothes or something that make you feel that way. And I try to facilitate you being able to go
work out. Like you really helped me with that.
Yeah, you
Watching
feel
the
so
kids.
much better. I was like, okay, well, I want to facilitate these things, not only because I want you to feel confident and want to present, and want to be seen. I also reap the benefit of that. Like, I love it when you're confident. I love it when you are happy with how you present. I always love how you present, and I always want you and desire you. But it's way more enjoyable for me when you are comfortable with yourself, and so I want you to set you up to feel that way as much as possible.
Yeah, it's a lot more enjoyable because that when I know you're confident, I'm confident. It's just way more fun than feeling like, oh man, I need to like make sure they know they're awesome.
Sure. Sure,
It's
yeah.
just, you could be a lot more lighthearted and free.
Yeah.
And so, and I do think that, anyways, it's just, that's something for me that's been really huge. I also think like if the adrenaline has not gone up in your marriage for a really long time, or for us, if we feel that way, or just kind of getting into ruts, like raise it. We go out of our way to like do that. And that could be through a lot of different things. That could be through doing something that we haven't done before together as a couple and just like laughing, like riding jet skis, going to an amusement park, riding snowmobiles, like doing something that scares us, jumping off a bridge into water, like getting out of our comfort zone in some way together is a way that can really bring that like spike of adrenaline back into our marriage.
100%.
And that just leads to a lot more fun.
For
and,
sure.
like,
Yeah. I mean, again, like as a married couple, like who says you can't like go park, somewhere and make out and what, like try to dodge the security guards at places, like that's fun. That, like you said, it's that element of adrenaline that is really can spike the romance in the marriage.
Yeah, so that could be like through dating, through a shared experience. Elisha and I have gotten really into taking different classes together that have been really fun.
Yep.
I think some other things are going to specifically the bedroom. This is not like limited to the bedroom is what I'm trying to say. It can happen in a lot of different ways, and just with different interests. But in the bedroom, like, again, if everything's just kind of like humdrum, you know what to expect, you know what to happen, you have a rhythm, you have a routine, like break the rhythm, break the routine. And I think that could be, going somewhere else. It could be doing something that your spouse just has written you off as like, they're never going to do that. They're never going to wear that. They're never going to say that. And just like, shocking them like, oh, you had me in a box. Well, I'm not in a box anymore. I think that Elisha does that with me and I do that with him.
I'll say. Yeah.
And that's just really fun. That leads to a lot of good times where we just like will bust up laughing or like, oh my word, I'm so shocked right now.
Yeah.
And that's really fun to surprise your spouse in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. That's it. Did you say all your points?
Yeah, did you?
I did. I said all my points.
You said all your points.
Yeah.
So that's good. I want us to not be limited to maybe some limiting beliefs that come to marriage, which say the excitement of it is over. So now just we can have friendship, we can have trust, we can have emotional security, we can have unconditional love, which are all beautiful, beautiful things. But we can't have that intense pleasure anymore or that high of romance.
Yeah, I'm reminded again, I'm currently I'm doing this like course that the topic matter will remain unsaid, but it's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. And I've been, watching videos and I can dream about the outcome, what I want from this course.
Okay. Elisha's like attending a course.
Yes.
It's like an in-person event, basically.
But there's a lot of preparation that needs to go into it too, that they give you all this homework and stuff. But it's funny because prior to getting the homework and starting to do this stuff, I was like, this is going to be awesome. And I think we do that with romance. We're like, that is awesome. And then you start doing the work and you're like, oh, it does require work. You forget that like you've got this goal, but you can't lose sight of the goal. And I think that we sometimes lie to ourselves and say, oh, it's unattainable or it's unachievable. It's like, no, it's like anything in life that you want and that's worth working, that's worth having, and it's going to require work, and it's going to require getting outside of your comfort zone and learning new skills, new habits, new routines. But again, it's so worth it.
Well, I like how you said we write things off as unattainable, because something I see a lot, again, is this concept of, what Hollywood depicts as romance and love is fake. And honestly, I don't think that's true. I think that often, hear me out on this.
Wow.
When I watch certain love stories, maybe they are just taking a certain strand of a love story and they aren't showing the real ups and downs or the real, just rock bottoms that couples hit or whatever. But as far as the high points in a Hollywood relationship, that is 100% possible in a marriage where it is hot and steamy and fun and you just can't get enough of your spouse. Like, that's so possible.
You know what's interesting is, I agree.
I guess I see in like Christian circles and conservative circles wanting to, do I think we should be consuming that media? No. But do I think it's fake? No. And I think that we cheat ourselves out of an incredible blessing that God gave us. You read Song of Solomon. It's like that marriage or relationship. I don't quite know what Song of Solomon is, but regardless, it was hot, And I think we cheat ourselves out of, oh, that's possible in marriage, because we're just like, oh yeah, that's just like some dramatized Hollywood version of whatever.
Yeah, I don't know what brings up those things in conversations or in our outlook on life. I do think that a lot of times we're not good at measuring the wins, looking backwards, and because I think you and I in a lot of areas of life just choose to count the wins. We definitely want to learn from the losses, learn from the struggles, but it's almost like people will say, well, you have to acknowledge all of the negative things that you ever go through in life to be honest, or to be transparent, or to be authentic. It's like, no, everything. Why would we don't have to do that at all. We can choose to look back on our marriage and remember the high points, knowing that we learned from the lessons, not ignore, not brush under the rug the hard things that we went through, but to remember those high points as motivation, to be like, no, our marriage has been fun and there's more of that to attain in the future, especially when we learn from the hardships and know that that's a part of the process. And then I do wonder too, is it's almost like in people's maybe effort to want to prove the unconditional love, they think it has to be hard. Like, it's not unconditional love if it's not hard. And unconditional love obviously sustains a marriage when it is hard. Mm-hmm. And we've been through hard times, and every marriage goes through hard times. Mm-hmm. But just because it's fun doesn't mean that that's not unconditional love. And I think that it makes unconditional love all the more enjoyable when a relationship is fun. And so it's worth striving for. And it's worth striving for a romantic and flirtatious marriage.
Yeah, and it's worth striving for with little kiddos.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible in seasons with little children. And I don't want to treat lightly that romance and physical intimacy and all that, it's a very, very complex topic because there are so many things at play. It is spiritual. It is emotional. It is little things that you do can really jar and make it very painful. You're opening yourself up to your spouse in marriage in a way that opens you up to a lot of potential pain and vulnerability and all of those things. So I'm not treating it lightly, I guess, and saying like, oh yeah, this is just like fun and sparky and all that. I think that is built on this foundation where Christ is the center and where there is that love of like a wife can feel totally open and free because her spouse, her husband does love her so much. And I feel like that's why I feel like I'm able to feel so much freedom and fun in our marriage is because you've protected the purity of our marriage. And I think that goes both ways in just how much trust we have for each other and respect we have for each other. So I know that this is a complex topic, and I know that if you're in a marriage right now where there's a lot of hurt or there's a lot of pain, I don't have the answers, but I know that Christ does. And I would just encourage continually seeking him, because in that safety of marriage is where marriage can get really fun, when you have a really safe place in your spouse.
That's so good. I love it. That's probably a good way to sign off. I feel like it's so good to look at marriage through the same lens we want to look at children, and that's what does the Bible say about it. The Bible talks about it with very high esteem. It says it's good. It says it's a blessing. He that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and receiveth favor of the Lord. And it says it's romantic. It says it can be. That's straight from God's word and his design for marriage. And so we want to look to that as being our North Star, first and foremost, and then work towards seeing that come to fruition.
Yeah. I think it's cool to think God created romance. And so it's worth pursuing.
Yes, absolutely. Folks, thank you so much for listening.
Don't forget to sign up for Top 5 Tuesday.
Better not forget. Okay. Talk to you next week.
Next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.